And he said, okay. He said, tomorrow, Geoff, you're going to drive this car and you're going to take this. And he gave me like a Ziploc bag full of like small coins and some crumpled up like French francs and what have you, and Spanish pesetas. And he said, and you're driving to Burgos. And I'm like, well, where's that? Yeah, it's in the northeast of Spain. I'm like, okay. And so that's what I did.
Welcome to the Canadian Cycling Magazine podcast. I'm Matthew Pioro, and with me is Matt Hansen. Welcome, Matt.
Hello, Matt.
How are you doing?
Pretty good. Are we talking to another Matt today?
No. Unlike the last episode, which was Matt cubed, there's only the two of us Matts here today. I spoke with, very recently, Geoff Brown.
I bet you he had lots to talk about.
He did. If you, listener, do not know who Geoff Brown is, we are here to fix that, because Geoff Brown, his title in his email is Girona Warehouse Manager for Human-Powered Health, which doesn't sound that spectacular. But Geoff Brown is a mechanic. We say for short he's from Ottawa. He grew up in the Milton, Toronto area. He has been in pro cycling since about 93, 92.
That's 30 years for those of us who are math inclined.
Thank you, math. And he has been on teams. I'm going to forget some, but Motorola, Discovery, US Postal, various incarnations of Garmin, the Jonathan Vaughters project, which today is known as EF Education. What am I forgetting there, Matt?
Symmetrics.
Of course! Symmetrics, the venerable Canadian squad. He was there helping Canadians on the North American circuit. He has seen technology evolve. He's seen the world's best riders. He's worked on their bikes. And his stories that he's shared with me are just scratching the surface. But yes, Geoff Brown, fascinating dude. And we will hear from him in just a minute.
And I have to say, being a mechanic, like, I could never be a mechanic, first of all, because I'd probably break everything. But, it's one thing breaking your own bike. Like, I remember when I was a kid, I once routed my chain through the spokes, as my brother would remind me. But it's one thing to wreck, I'm not even kidding. But to be fixing someone's bike at the Tour de France or any race like that, even if it's a domestique, and then, you're watching, not when they have a flat or something that, is not avoidable, but when something goes wrong on the bike, I would just think, oh my God, I'm going to get fired. Like, just the pain and the stress of the mechanics sitting there going, oh crap. Some stuff's unavoidable, right? And also it's just, when a guy gets problems at Paris-Roubaix or some insane stage like that, well, that's understandable. But still, I always think that the stress those poor guys must go through, apart from building, 20 time trial bikes the night before a stage and well, in the old days when he used to glue tubulars on and all that stuff, I just can't imagine what that job is like, and I'm glad it's not mine.
We definitely get into time trial bikes and Geoff's thoughts about those, as well as tubulars, because he has seen a lot of tubulars, and he's not too choked up that the tubular is becoming less and less frequent in the pro peloton. Geoff is one of the first people in the pro peloton that I had ever met. Way back in 2010, when I was moonlighting as a cycling journalist, it wasn't my day job. I went to the Grand Prix Cycliste de Quebec and Montreal in their first year, and I'm wandering around the pits, and Geoff Brown was on Garmin, and somehow we struck up a conversation. He's like, oh yeah, I'm from Ottawa. And I'm like, I'm from Ottawa. And he was so nice and so generous, sharing his time with a rookie cycling journalist like me. And even, our chat today, that generosity comes through for sure.
I think, too, what's neat about him is that, he's been through, arguably, you want to call it 3 eras. Like when he first started, this was the era of, Bauer and Lamond are towards the end of their careers. Then you're going to the next era with, the Armstrong, the Hincappies, obviously the Michael Berrys, and then on to, the Swains and now on to the current. I mean, I don't know if you want to call it generations, but these big groups of cyclists that we all know. And think of all the Canadians he's worked with, right? Ford Fraser, Bauer, Barry, all those Symmetrics guys, Ryder. I mean,
that's right. He was working on Ryder Hesjedal's bike at the 2012 Giro d'Italia, which Ryder Hesjedal won. So yeah, he's been in the background for so many important moments and races of the past 30 years. The guy's an encyclopedia, and he joked in the interview about putting a book together, which I hope he's not joking, because that'd be something. It would also be thick, I imagine.
Be well put together, you might say.
Like a finely tuned road bike. And with that, let's hear from Geoff Brown. Geoff Brown, you have been officially to 21 Tours de France in your more than 30-year career as a team mechanic. You've also made some quick hits into the Tour, doing some last-minute logistics, I understand. But 21 official visits, that is the most tours for, I think, any Canadian working at the big event. It's more tours than Steve Bauer. He did 11 as a rider, but he's been back in various other roles. As you and I are speaking, it's early in the Tour de France season. What's it like for a team mechanic in the lead up to the Tour and, say, during the first week?
As a team mechanic, we would already be at the race venue preparing everything. Like the soigneurs and the mechanics will have already arrived at the first hotel to get ready, because riders will be coming from different locations. So some will arrive earlier, some will arrive a bit later. So we're there already on site, getting everything ready. So when the riders come in, there's no last minute anything. It's just, here's your bike, go riding, whatever, go for a little training ride or spin or whatever, So that's fine. And we do all the preps depending on what the first stage consists of. If it's a time trial, an individual or a team time trial, whatever. Make sure everything is prepared already. The race bikes, the race wheels, everything. The directors of the team will have already planned out the logistics of what's going to happen when the riders are, going training before the Tour. They'll be doing some recons of probably the first stage, whatever it is, a time trial or a road stage. Actually, to be honest, I don't know I haven't really seen what's happening on this year's Tour for the first stage. I know it's in the Basque Country.
Yeah, it's mostly road. It's road stuff.
Okay, that's kind of cool. That's a little less stressful than, let's say, a time trial.
Oh, why is that?
Well, time trials are a pain in the ass. If I had a time machine, I would go back and shoot the guy who invented the triathlon handlebar that started it all. Actually, I'd shoot Greg LeMond, or I'd make sure that he didn't beat Fignon. No, only joking.
Right. With all jokes.
That's an inside joke amongst all team mechanics. If it's the most common phrase or repeated phrase is, I hate time trials.
Right, because of the complexity of those bikes.
Yeah, the complexity of the bikes and it's a lot of work for almost no results. Like 99.9% of the time, nobody does anything. They arrive, they finish. Oh, I finished 21st in the TT. Yeah, and I worked 21 hours on your bike. Good job. So, but no, but obviously, they have the time trial. It's a bike race, so there has to be different elements. So, there are guys who are good at climbing mountains. There are good guys who are good at sprinting, and there are guys good at going fast in a straight line, over a time distance. So, I understand it. To be honest and serious, I understand why it's there, but that's just a little chuckle that team mechanics have. Time trial, oh my God! And when it's revealed that the first stage of the Tour is not a time trial, oh, there's a big celebration.
Popping champagne early in the mechanic's truck.
Exactly. Yeah. But to be honest, to counter that, when you do make a big prep for a time trial leading up to the first stage, whatever it is, and you win, then that's actually the biggest feeling you'll ever have, more than just a road stage or whatever. we won the time trial or we won the team time trial, which is really, really important because that's 8 or 9 bikes that you have to get ready. So you have 8 or 9 chances that something might go wrong, right, during the race. When it finishes and you win and nothing bad happened, that's the greatest feeling. So, yeah, you can counter that.
I can imagine you felt that during your days on Garmin, as that team was called at various times. They had a pretty good team time trial squad during some of those years.
Yeah, I remember, was it 2012 or 2013 where we won the opening team time trial? That was great because I remember in the parking lot at the start area, we were parked beside where Team Sky were. There was hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people surrounding the Team Sky area, the compound that they set up. And there was maybe 10 people at our venue, So it was good when we won. That was, they were the projected people to win. But yeah, guess what?
There you go. A lot of new gear debuts at the Tour. In years when you were headed to the Tour, how early would you be able to get your hands on the new stuff and work with it before the Grand Départ?
Before that would be normally the stuff had already been used, kind of not with all the riders, but maybe with 1 or 2 riders at either the Tour of Switzerland or the Dauphiné Libre, which are the 2 big lead-up races going into the Tour de France. So we'd have 1 or 2 guys on, like it was a new set of wheels or a new frame or whatever. You'd generally get a chance to test it out there. To be honest, it's very, very rare that you got something cold out of the box just before the day before the Tour. You wouldn't want to do that. That would be a big risk. So you definitely needed to test your gear in a race environment beforehand.
Does the Tour get easier for a mechanic as, it goes on for its 3 weeks?
Well, no, not. I wouldn't say easier is a better term. It kind of like, well, it can flatten out most of the time where you're in your routine. So it's just the one day is like the next sort of thing. However, if you have a rider in contention and then there's a big battle going on for the GC, then every day you wake up, it's like, oh, today could be the day that we take the yellow jersey or whatever, or today's the day that our sprinter's going to win the stage. So it's not consistent. I mean, if the GC is already done, if the guy in the yellow jersey is up 10 minutes ahead and barring disaster, he's going to take it all the way to Paris, then things kind of settled in the race. But sometimes things aren't decided until the very last minute. So every day you wake up and it's like, okay, it's a new day today. Let's see what happens,
What is, this is maybe an unfair question just based on what you said, but what is a typical-ish day like for a mechanic at the Tour?
Okay, well, once you've got past the first opening stages and you're sort of into your routine, you wake up early, 6 o'clock, because basically what you're doing is you're just carrying over from the next day, right? What you've done the day before. So to get into during the first week, for example, you'll get up early in the morning, 6 o'clock or so. You'll go and have your breakfast, and you'll go out to the team truck. You'll open up the equipment truck, and then you'll take the bikes out. And any any work that you've had to do, if there was a crash the day before, and you had to replace parts or whatever, that's already been done. You don't when you start your day, everything has to be ready to go from the day before already. So anything that happened yesterday has already been taken care of.
So the night before, you could have a late night if you're repairing bikes after a crash or something like that.
Absolutely. If you have to stay up till 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, so be it. The day you wake up, whatever that day, you're don't want to carry anything over from the day before. It's a new day. You got to be ready to go. The directors don't have any sympathy for that. It's like, sorry, but that's your job. Make sure it's done. So you get up in the morning, you open the truck, you take out the bikes, you pump the tires, and then you load the bikes and the spare wheels and whatever onto the team cars. and then you're ready to go to the start area.
Where do you get your breaks throughout the day? Like, do you find breaks throughout the day? Are you in a team car and you're still on edge as the riders are racing?
So at a Grand Tour, be it the Tour, the Giro, or the Vuelta, generally a team will take 4 mechanics on average, and 2 mechanics will be assigned to the 2 team cars that go in the race, and the other 2 will be responsible for transporting the truck to the next team hotel, and then doing any work that's required there on equipment and what have you that's not needed during that day stage. So yeah, if you're in the car, I mean, when I first started this job, there's always a joke going around, oh yeah, you can sleep in the team car. And I'm like, oh, I'll never do that. And when I started off, I would say for about my first 10 or 11 Tour de France's that I did, I never slept in the team car. I was always awake, always. And also in the olden days, before the UCI got really clamped down on driving in a race caravan, one of the mechanics would often drive the second team car alone. So you didn't have a chance to sleep at all. But these days, I remember my last tour in 2018, I definitely took a few naps because I was mainly in the second team car most of the time. So when you're in the second team car and you don't have the yellow jersey, you're pretty well far away from the action, in a long line of cars.
So in your career, or throughout your career, you've worked on teams such as Motorola, Discovery, US Postal, as I mentioned, Garmin in its various guises. So that's put you in contact with riders such as Lance Armstrong, Ryder Hesjedal. You worked on his bike at his Giro victory in 2012. Others include Floyd Landis, Christian Vandevelde, Tom Danielson, David Miller. You worked with Swain Tuft, but I think that was on Symmetrics, not at the World Tour level. Is that correct?
That's, if I remember correctly, I did work with him at Garmin for 1 year.
Ah, right, of course.
Before he signed for Green Edge, I believe. Yeah, or no, it wasn't Green Edge. It was. Did he go to
Spider Tech?
Spider Tech, and then afterwards he went to Green Edge. Yes. Yeah.
Who was the most, let's say, fastidious rider, or maybe the most demanding rider you remember working with, or have worked with, let's say?
Well, everybody kind of, maybe a lot of people have heard that Lance had the nickname of Mr. Millimeter because his saddle height was incredibly important to him, as with a lot of cyclists. But he would double check all the time, double check all the time. We'd get to a start, we'd take his bike off the car, he'd get off the bus, and without any verbal communication, you just hand him an Allen key and a tape measure. He would do it himself. It
was almost like someone walking into a bar and getting the usual. You just have it ready for him.
Yep. No, that was exactly. He didn't even have to say. He didn't even have to ask. It's just like, here you go. And then that was it.
Throughout the tour, as you've mentioned, there's moments of like high pressure, lots of stress, maybe a time trial. Is there any stressful situation that has stood out above any of the others for you in a Grand Tour or in a Tour de France?
Well, yeah, I've seen a rider die.
Right, that's Fabio Casartelli?
Casartelli, yeah. That's pretty stressful, but in a different way. That's beyond cycling,
What were your thoughts then with the recent news of Gino Mader passing at the Tour de Suisse? Because it was also on a descent. Did you think back to 1995?
Yeah, well, like I've seen, I saw, I was on site when that happened to Fabio. And then I was also, believe it or not, witnessed the death of Walter Wayland.
That was at the Giro.
Yeah, the Giro, yeah. By sheer, what happened was we were in the stage and it was on the descent, and he was just coming back through the team cars to get back onto the group. He'd been dropped on the climb and he was coming back through, and he passed us just seconds, I want to say 5 seconds. He went flying past us. And the next thing we hear on the race radio is crash, crash, crash. And even before the guys finished saying crash, 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 we're there. And right on site, and he's there and just laying down on the ground, and his bike is off somewhere in the trees or whatever. And we had our team doctor was in the car with us, and the team doctor looks and he says, stop the car, stop the car. So our team doctor jumps out, who is an ER doctor in Denver. So he's used to like dealing with gunshots and knife wounds and all that sort of stuff. And I looked and I saw Walter laying there, and he looked exactly the same as Fabio, exactly the same. And I knew at that moment that it was, that it was not good. And and our team doctor, he went and tried. He was there before the Giro doctor got there, right? Like it just happened so fast. It was just like in a blink of an eye, and he just stayed there. We left him on the road, and trying to do resuscitate, do whatever ER doctors do, in an emergency situation. And and we just kept going, and afterwards we understood that, he'd passed. So
right, and that was particularly. It affected the whole peloton, but particularly Tyler Farrar, because they were pretty close. The sprinter on Garmin at the time, who you were working with.
Yeah, Tyler. Yeah.
Yeah, those are not the kind of stories you expect to be telling as a mechanic. I imagine you don't sign up this.
No, it's not a typical. It's not a bike relay racing story. It's a life story, isn't it? Right?
Yeah. Can you compare being at the Tour with, say, U.S. Postal, and contrast that with your time, say, at Garmin, as the Jonathan Vaughters project was mostly known? Does team culture affect the mechanics?
Yeah, I did 2 Tour de France's pre-Lance, right? So with U.S. Postal, 1997 and 1998. And, we really weren't in with we didn't have humongous expectations during those years. Although in 1998, we did get a top 10 in the GC with Jean-Cyril Robin. So that was kind of cool. We thought that's it. And this is, like I said, we weren't even thinking about Lance. Lance was still recovering from, his cancer operation. Let me backtrack. So Lance came to the team in 98, right? If I remember correctly. He did a few races and whatever, but then there was a period where he didn't look like he was going to continue. So we went to the Tour without him and whatever, and we did our Tour de France. And then there was a whole story around the Tour de France in 98, as you know, with the Festina scandal and whatever. So that was already, the big thing. And then I believe, if I'm not mistaken, later in the year, Lance decided he wanted to do the Vuelta. He's going to come back and give it a second try, come back version 2. And he had a good Vuelta, and he had a good World Championships. So then in 99, it was, let's focus on the Tour, and then the rest is history, Once you had a designated leader, once you won the Tour de France, for any team, the team culture goes to, focusing on a certain, because we know the Tour cycling is about the Tour and whatever. Then if you have a potential Tour de France winner, then the culture in the team, it kind of focuses on that. It doesn't take away from the other races, which are equally, just as important. I mean, like Paris-Roubaix and Milan-San Remo and all these sort of things. But we know that the Tour is it. That's the one that drives cycling. So, yeah, you kind of focus on things that are Tour related. As a mechanic, as a soigneur or whatever, you keep doing your job for the other races, but there's always a return point that, the big focus will be the Tour de France. In a lot of cases, it influences how you budget your equipment and this kind of thing, right? Like we know we're going to get X amount of the special tire. We can use a small amount for this race, but save the bulk for the Tour de France. These kind of things, So that definitely was the thing with U.S. Postal Discovery once Lance became the man of the Tour. In a team like Garmin, where you focused on getting results in all kinds of different races, it was it was a bit different, yeah, for sure.
you've seen a lot of changes in bike technology throughout your career. Were there any changes that actually made a mechanic's life easier?
Well, there's one going on right now, which I think eventually will make our lives easier or more pleasant, and that's switching over to tubeless tires as opposed to having to glue tubulars. Like, I've been gluing tubular tires for more than 30 years, and I'm surprised to have any brain cells left whatsoever.
Because of the glue?
Because of the glue. Right? I've been sniffing glue for, forever. You can probably tell by, just the way I'm talking. So, but
the time it takes to glue a tubular is much more than even, like, I know tubeless is a bit fussier for the average Joe than a clincher, but for you, it must be just much easier once you have the compressor and all that set up.
Yeah, for sure. No, that's what I mean. But it's a learning process, right? Because you want to do it correctly. So think about it. Tubular tires. So now I'm involved in cycling at the highest level. So there's no learning process as such. You already should know what to do. So tubular tires. Yeah, Jeff, can you glue some tires, Jeff? Yeah, I'll have 20 for you in an hour. No problem. I can do that. Because I'm now built to glue tubulars, right? I'm a tubular gluing machine. But tubeless, our team has just switched over more or less full time to tubeless this year. And I want to be able to apply the same thing that I do with tubulars to tubeless, right? But it's a shorter learning curve, right? I had to learn to do it in a month. And luckily, one of the mechanics I work with, our American-based mechanic, Tim, he has a lot of experience with mountain bikes and gravel biking and all of this kind of thing, and working in a bike shop when he's not at the bike races. He very kindly showed me a few shortcuts, the way to do it. And I'm a fast learner, so I'm pretty confident now that I've got it. But for me, that's probably one of the most pleasant new technological innovations, is tubeless tire.
Interesting. And I think I already know my follow-up question was what changes have added additional complexity? Based on your discussion earlier, I know you love aero bars, but is there any other developments that you're like, oh man, this is such a pain? So one of the things is that you've got so many different aspects of a bicycle, right? So you got a frame manufacturer, and then you've got a wheel manufacturer, and then you've got handlebar and stem and component manufacturers. And the thing is to try and find the best combination. So, in professional cycling, as you know, at the highest level, everything is sponsored. In the World Tour, everything is sponsored, and you get all your stuff for free, and you get a huge amount of this and a huge amount of that. And but the people who give it to you are often in communication with each other. Like the frame manufacturer has a relationship with the component manufacturer or the wheel manufacturer, right? And so they do a lot of development together before they actually give you the stuff, right? So that's good. But at the pro tour level, or what they call the pro team, it's where we are with our team, Human Powered Health. We have to purchase a lot of our stuff. So we get frames from felt, but we have to buy our handlebars and our wheels and our stems from Vision FSA, and we buy our components from SRAM. Luckily, everything seems to be goes together well. But when there is a chance that when you have to buy certain things, it might not work optimally with some other part of your bicycle. You know what I mean? Right. Well, we've seen that trend in cycling where manufacturers have their own systems and they want you to be part of that ecosystem.
Yes, absolutely. Like with long cage, like, the big jockey wheels, right? The oversized pulley wheels. Okay. Everybody's into, ceramic speed this or another manufacturer, whatever. They say, put this on your derail. It's going to work great. Okay. Yeah, it may do. But Shimano, a company like Shimano or SRAM, they'll look at that and go, our system is designed specifically to work in a certain way with certain components of the derailleur or whatever. And if you change that, we can't guarantee that it'll maintain the performance. You know what I mean? And they're absolutely right in saying that. They're absolutely right, you know?
Right, because they don't test for these aftermarket things. They test their own stuff, yeah.
Exactly. You know, they spend money on their own stuff. Why would they spend money testing other people's stuff? That's dumb, you know? But yeah, when we have to do things like that, it'll be a head scratcher. You'll be going, oh, well, okay. Well, we've been told we have to try this out. So let's see what happens.
The problem solving never stops.
No, not at all. No, there's always something to keep you busy, keep your mind, keeping the gray matter stirring around.
I know of a former pro cyclocross racer who was lied to by his mechanics. And let me explain this story a bit.
Okay.
The rider would test his setup, come back to the pits and say something like, oh, the first tire needs half a PSI of air let out. And then the mechanics would, say, okay. He'd come back later. And this is what I heard from one of the people in his support crew. This rider would come back later, ride his bike, and be satisfied with the change. But there was actually no change. They wouldn't do anything for a half a PSI. So based on that example, have you ever pulled a fast one on a rider, or maybe had some offered a mechanical placebo instead of a true fix or true demand by a rider?
Well, can you tell me how much exactly is half a millimeter?
No.
Or half a PSI? Can you?
I am not that sensitive a machine.
Exactly. Is there an actual handheld device that can measure that? and then also you actually adjust it accordingly? The tire pressure? No, there isn't. Okay, so a professional bike rider is a person who's under an immense amount of pressure, both physically and mentally, right? And a lot of these things that they come up with are related to that. So they just want to come, quite often, they're just there to come and they want to hear what you have to say, right? Because you're the guy who's working on his bike every day. You cannot believe how many times I've been asked to adjust a saddle half a millimeter. You know what I do? There in front of the rider, I'll take my hammer and I'll smash the top of the saddle and I'll say, yep, it just went down half a millimeter. Because, and the rider will say, okay. Yeah, that's fine. Or you'll go and test it out. No, that's actually a bit of a joke, actually. But no, there'll be a lot of you use the word placebo. Yes, we use placebos on the riders when they ask for that. But for example, now, when you mentioned tire pressure. So what we do is there's actually now a lot of research and information passed along to us by the tire manufacturers, right? And they actually offer a lot of information in terms of your rider is this weight. If he's riding under these conditions, this is the recommended tire pressure. And we apply that quite often. And the riders are made aware of this information, so they know it as well. And then we'll get at a race, we'll inflate the tires. We have handheld inflators now that have a digital reading on them. And the rider will come to his bike just before he has to go to the start line. And we'll say, or he goes to sign on for the stage or the race and say, how much pressure do you want today? And they'll say, oh, what size tires are we using? Today you got 28 millimeters. Okay. They actually, at the very last moment, they'll have their phone in their pocket and they'll pull out and they'll look in their files and they'll say, okay, for me, and it's sunny and I am not kidding you, man. The riders these days are so aware of what they need to do, which is really good. It's really good. It helps us a lot. And they'll say, okay, I need 5.1 bar. Okay. So we just, the machine can be either in imperial or metric, the readout, we just adjust it, whatever they say. I mean, mostly the US and Canadian riders still use PSI, but the Europeans go in bars, and so then we'll just inflate, and they can visually see what it says on the readout, and they're happy, and that's how you do it.
Your job then is like a mixture of mechanic, maybe a bit of
psychologist.
Exactly, a bit of psychologist, like finding ways to help them feel in the zone, in control.
But that's the modern cyclist now, right? Power meters. This all happened because of power meters. It cannot be said, or it cannot be denied, that these days you're either physically destined to be a professional cyclist or you're not. Professional teams that are looking to pick up riders, that's the first thing they do is they test them. They see what power outputs they have, whatever. It's all about the numbers. All about the numbers.
Right. And now even kids have power meters. So they're sending their like their junior years, even before, they've got power files for that. And they're sending that to prospective teams.
Oh my God, yes. Yeah. That truly actually is turning cycling into a real professional sport. But it's much different these days. Back in the old days when we had to hand pump the tires with an old Silka foot pump, with a dial on it, and the dials were very kind of random a little bit, I put like 6 bar in, okay. And the guy would come and, oh yeah, 6, that looks good. You sure that's, yeah. And then he'd say, can you do 0.1? And he just like, one more pump. Okay, that's 0.1,
Nice. So much data, even for the mechanic now.
Oh, absolutely. No, but it's like that. But the team directors do a lot of, are involved now. They're much more, like in the old days, we used to say the only thing you need to be a team director is a driver's license, right? Because you're just following behind in the car. You don't do anything. You either like listen to the radio, eat a sandwich, drink a Coke, whatever. It's the guy in the back who has to do everything, the mechanic. So these days, not. No. I mean, you have to be a qualified UCI director. You have to go to the UCI school to learn how to do it, get your director's license, so on and so forth. So it's really changed a lot. That's, it's become more and more and more. You need a lot of qualifications,
It's very different from your start. I think I remember the story correctly. You showed up in Belgium. This is when you started working on a World Tour Pro team, and you were handed keys to a Mercedes and a wad of cash, and see you in 2 months. Is that the story?
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. So what happened was, I was at the 1992 Olympic Games with Team Canada in Barcelona. The director of the CCA in those days was Ron Heyman, who'd been a professional in Europe. He'd been on the 7-Eleven teams. He'd heard that Motorola, so the continuation of 7-Eleven, were looking for mechanics. So he said he'd send a note to the guy who ran that program, was a guy, Tom Schuler, because he said, okay, you've done the Olympics, Geoff. Your next step is to go to Europe and become a mechanic for a pro team, which, he hit the nail on the head. That's all I ever dreamed about doing was being a mechanic at bike races. So sure enough, I got a small CV together. I gave it to Ron. He faxed it. Remember what a fax machine? He faxed it to Tom Schuler at the Motorola team headquarters in Waukesha, Wisconsin. And about 2 weeks later, I get a phone call from Belgium. And it's Noël Dionker, who was the European director of the Motorola team. He said, yeah, Geoff, we're really interested in having you. But first, we'd like you to do, in 93, we have the Tour de France down in the States there. And he said, would you be available to do that if we need you? And I, of course, agreed immediately. And anyway, so that was, that was late 92. And then a couple of months later, I got a phone call back from Noël, and he said, yeah, okay, Geoff, we'd like you to come and do the Tour de France with us. So we'll fly you to Milwaukee, and then you'll go to Waukesha, and you'll pick up a team van, and you'll drive to the start, which was in Wilmington, Delaware, I believe. And anyway, so I did that, and did the race. But it was an American race, and it was nice to do it. It was a professional race, and you got to see all the, a couple of really big European pros and what have you, and you're working with a big American team, whatever, and that was kind of cool. It was kind of like I was always niggling. Do you think you'll need me? I was asking the other mechanic who'd come over to the States from Europe. He said, I said, do you think you'll need me in Europe? It's kind of like this being a pain in the ass, like a yappy little dog, And remember that Looney Tunes where you had that cartoon where you had a big dog and a little yappy dog.
You and me, Spike. You and me as pals, eh, Spike?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And the dog would turn around and go, yeah, shut up, boom, and give me a slap across the face. It was kind of like that. But anyways, luckily, I guess I did okay in the Tour de France. And afterwards, Noel called me back and he said, yeah, Geoff, we'd like to bring you to Europe. And I was like to bring it to Europe. And I was like, yes, right on. So they sent me a plane ticket. It was just after the tour had finished. And a lot of their staff were going on vacation, so they needed replacement staff. So they brought me over. They flew me to Brussels. And I got picked up at the airport by one of their soigneurs, and they drove me to the team headquarters, which was near Kortrijk in Belgium. And I got there, and I met Noel. Hey, Noel, how are you? Good, yeah, blah, blah, blah. I met, soigneur, another soigneur and whatever, another mechanic. And he said, okay. He said, tomorrow, Geoff, you're going to drive this car, and you're going to take this. And he gave me like a Ziploc bag full of like small coins and some crumpled up like French francs and what have you, and Spanish pesetas. And he said, and you're driving to Burgos. And I'm like, well, where's that? Yeah, it's in the northeast of Spain. I'm like, okay. And so that's what I did. The next day I got up and I just kept, I didn't know where the hell I was going. It was in the days before GPS, and I had a Michelin map book, with the big thick ones, which was extremely useful. I eventually got to Burgos and we did the race and And then from there I went to another Spanish race. And then from there I went to, drove across France. We did a few races in France. And then we went across to Italy, spent a few weeks doing races around Italy. So this was in August, and eventually by the end of October, the last race was Tour of Lombardy. So we did that. And then it was there that I met the team owner, Jim Okowitz, and he offered me a full-time contract, which I accepted on the spot. And then I drove back to Belgium, and that was it. And then the next day I got a plane back to Canada.
Man, that is like thrown right into the thick of it. That's amazing.
Well, yeah, but that's what they wanted, right? That's what they want. A guy in my situation who's a North American going over to Europe, getting into the European lifestyle, it's not an easy thing to do, really, if I may say that. But I guess I was cut out for this life. So, that's who I am. That's what I do.
So from that era to more than 30 years later, you are on the US-based squad, Human Powered Health. You've been there for a little more than 3 years. And as you mentioned, it's a UCI Pro team. So we could say Division 2.
Yeah, but they do have a Women's World Tour team.
Exactly. And I was going to come around to that because it is the Women's World Tour team that is bringing you back to the Tour de France, I understand.
Yes, indeed. Yes, it is.
This will be your first, it'll be your first women's tour in its current incarnation, but you were supporting a women's tour or working as a mechanic at a women's tour in the 90s. That's correct, yes?
Yes, with the Canadian national team, yeah.
Again, things have changed quite a bit on that side of the sport.
Yeah, because in those days, there wasn't really any women's professional teams. It was all done by national team, right?
And that's almost a throwback to earlier men's national teams that would show up at the tour.
Yeah, in the early tours. Yeah, back when they had them by national team. Yeah, you're right.
So what are you looking forward to at the Tour de France Femmes this year?
Well, obviously, hopefully our team can get some good results. That's what you go for, to get, to either win a stage or do well in the general classification. But no, it's organized by ASO. So it's, the Tour de France. They have all the same logistical support like the men's tour does. It's exactly the same. So I don't see actually a huge difference, in the way that, I'll have to do my job. But yeah, no, it should be good. When you get to the tour, you get your accreditation, and your accreditation has your photo on it. And after about the first 10 of my 21 men's tours that I did, they had it already on file. So I didn't have to send a photo in. So I hope I don't look too different from my last photo, last one from 2018, No, you say, oh, they'll be like, oh, Monsieur Brown, yeah, your son used to work the Tour de France. And I'll be like, fuck off.
Well,
no, it's me. I'm here.
That's right. Well, yeah, I hope it keeps you youthful.
Yeah.
And so where are you in your preparation for the Tour de France Femmes? We're speaking just at the start of July, so...
Yeah. Well, there's two other European, I'm European based as well, but there's two other European mechanics now who've just gone off to the Giro d'Italia for women. Basically, they've prepped already a lot of stuff for the Giro that'll be carried over for the Tour. Basically, I don't have to do much. But I'll have to probably transport some equipment to the start, because I believe the start is in Clermont-Ferrand for the women's tour, and which isn't all that far from Girona.
Right, where you're based.
Yes, it's not like having to drive to Paris. Yeah.
Well, Geoff, thank you so much for your time. Your stories, we've just scratched the surface of your stories. I know you've got a busload of stories, but I appreciate you sharing the ones you have today, and good luck at the Tour de France Femmes and at the rest of the races this year.
Thank you very much. It was nice speaking with you, Matt. And anytime people keep asking me, when are you going to write your book? When are you going to write your book? I said, the story's not finished yet.
All right. Well, yes, keep us posted on that epic that you'll be writing. Take care.
Yeah, you too. Thank you. Bye-bye.
And that's the episode. It is edited by me, Matthew Pioro, and I had help from Matt Hansen. Thank you, Matt.
You sure had a whole bunch.
You actually did help a lot with this one. You gave me some great background on Geoff, and you helped me shape the questions. So, yeah, thank you, Matt. This is a heartfelt one.
Well, you're welcome. It was a pleasure, as always.
As always. Also, thanks to Terry McCall. He is always helping in the background. This episode is produced by Adam Killick.
He also does the music.
Yes, he does. Thank you, Adam. Thanks also to Ontario Creates for its support. I just have to call back to the interview and Geoff Brown and how he said he is essentially returning to the tour this year, and it's the Tour de France Femmes. So that tradition of having Geoff Brown at the tour is continuing, which is really exciting as Human Powered Health is sending a squad to that race. I'm going to go probably watch the tour. I don't think I'm going to ride my bike, depending on the air quality, which is an ongoing theme.
Yeah, PSA, everyone who's listening, don't ride in this crap if you're from Quebec or Ontario, some parts. And I think out west it's a little better now. And I mean, I think it's going to be like this all summer. But I went for just a little crappy ride the other day, and it was early in the morning, so I figured it's going to be okay. I get home, and I did not feel so great. And it was like an hour and a half, and I had a headache, and I was sneezing, and I just generally felt awful. So that was, I can't believe I'm encouraging people to ride Zwift. Nothing's wrong with that in the middle of the summer, but it might be a good idea on some of these days.
I know, it's super frustrating because we ride Zwift in the winter, which is perfect for that, but in preparation to getting outside in the summer months, and it is a colossal bummer that now not only do I check the weather to see what the chance of rain is, I'm looking at air quality ratings and weighing that.
And it's such it's the thing we cyclists do, right? We check the weather more than anyone else. Sailors and surfers and cyclists are checking the weather network. We're their number one fans. And then, you got to look for those little warnings now. Air quality is terrible.
It's also worrisome how it's affecting a lot of the races this year, from local ones in Toronto that are getting canceled to Like you and I were just speaking before we got on mic here about Abitibi, and like fingers crossed that race goes ahead.
But even local races, local crits and stuff like that, we see some little cancellations. Local races in Quebec and Ontario are being canceled, and I'm sure, unfortunately, we're seeing more of that. I just feel bad for all these athletes who have been putting everything into these races. And then, we did hear from Luc Valenti before Beauce that he went out for a ride the week before, and he was actually concerned he wasn't going to do well at the race. But it took a couple of days for probably the rainy weather at Beauce to kind of clean out his lungs. Thankfully, once ever, it's a good time that there's terrible rain at Beauce. But yeah, he said he felt terrible for 2 days. He was sneezing and hacking up a lung. So, that's no bueno.
And this is just adding insult to injury after race cancellations throughout the pandemic. It's like, oh, we're coming out of it now. And it's like, okay, here's your environmental disaster, everyone. Thank you.
I know.
And wildfires. All right. On that awesome note.
Always on the high note.
Bummer in the summer. Ride safely. Ride carefully.
Check the weather.
Check the winds. Everyone, thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you later.